What if everything you know about learning is backwards? You spent years in school. You studied for tests. You passed exams. You learned languages, science, history, so you must know how to learn, right? Wrong. Here is the truth. Most people never actually learn. They memorize, they repeat, they forget. Then they call it learning. And the worst part, you probably do the same thing without realizing it. There is a technique so simple it sounds stupid, but it was used by one of the greatest minds in physics to understand things no one else could. He did not just learn faster, he learned deeper, and he did it by doing the exact opposite of what schools teach. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you why your current method wastes your time, why reading more does not help, why your brain tricks you into thinking you understand when you do not, and most importantly, I will give you the exact technique to learn anything you want, faster and better than ever before. But here is the deal, this only works if you watch till the end. If you skip ahead, you will miss the part that changes everything. So if you are serious about learning, hit the subscribe button right now. Like this video to support the channel. And stay with me because what comes next will completely change how your brain works. Let's begin. You think learning means reading something until it stays in your head. You highlight sentences, you repeat facts, you review notes before a test. And when the words look familiar, you believe you have learned. This feels obvious because you have done it since childhood. Teachers told you to study this way. Everyone around you does the same. The words we use support this belief. We say we absorb knowledge, we store information, we retain facts. These words make learning sound like filling a container. But here is the problem. You have never tested whether this actually works. You trusted the feeling of knowing. You saw a concept again and thought, yes, I remember this. That recognition felt like understanding. It was not. Try a simple test. Close your book. Explain what you just read to someone who knows nothing about it. Use only simple words, no jargon, no reading from notes. Most people fail immediately. They stumble, they pause, they realize they cannot say it clearly. This is the gap between recognition and understanding. Your brain recognized the words. It did not build real knowledge. The feeling of familiarity tricks you. It makes you confident before you are competent, and that false confidence stops you from doing the work that actually creates understanding. This is why the old method must be abandoned, not adjusted, abandoned. Because what you called learning was never learning at all. It was just exposure dressed as knowledge. Your brain is a liar, not intentionally, but it creates feelings that do not match reality. When you read something twice, your brain recognizes it faster. This speed feels like understanding. It is not. It is just familiarity. Your mind confuses seeing something again with actually knowing it. This happens because your brain takes shortcuts. It wants to save energy. Processing new information is expensive. So when something looks familiar, your brain says, we already know this. No need to work harder. You feel confident. You move on. But nothing was actually learned. This is why two students can read the same chapter and have completely different results. One feels certain, one feels confused. Neither feeling tells the truth about what they actually know. The confident student might fail the test. The confused student might pass. Feelings are not measurements. Your brain also builds quick mental simulations. You read about a concept and imagine you could explain it. That imagination feels real. But imagination is not ability. Thinking you could do something is not the same as doing it. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Your sense of understanding has almost no connection to actual understanding. Agreement among students means nothing. Confidence means nothing. The only thing that reveals real knowledge is performance. Can you explain it simply? Can you use it correctly? Can you answer questions you have never seen before? If not, the knowing was always an illusion. So if feelings lie, what tells the truth? We need a different way to measure understanding, not how it feels, what it does. Here is a simple test. Can you take what is in your head and put it outside your head in clear words? Not recite, not repeat, explain, in your own words, to someone who knows nothing. This is what understanding actually measures. Input versus output. You put information in. Can you generate it back out in a new form? Recognition is easy. Generation is hard. Reading is passive. Explaining is active. The gap between them reveals everything. When you try to explain, you discover what you actually know, not what you think you know, not what feels familiar, what you can actually produce without looking. This feels unsatisfying. You want understanding to be a warm feeling of clarity. Instead, it is a cold test of performance. Can you do it or not? There is no middle ground. But this clarity solves many problems. Vague questions like, do I really understand this? Disappear. The answer becomes simple. Explain it. If you can, you understand enough. If you cannot, you do not. No guessing, no hoping, just testing. This is why the language of learning fails. Words like absorb and grasp hide the truth. Understanding is not something you receive. It is something you build. And building requires output, not just input. Now we replace the broken model with something that works. The core idea is simple. If you want to learn something, try to teach it. Not teach to impress. Teach to test. Explain the concept as if speaking to a child. Use simple words. No jargon, no borrowed phrases, only your own understanding. When you do this, something happens. Gaps appear. You reach a point where words stop coming. You hesitate. You realize you cannot explain this part. That hesitation is not failure. It is information. It shows exactly where your understanding breaks. This is the mechanism. Explanation forces your brain to organize ideas. You cannot hide behind familiar words. You cannot skip the hard parts. Everything must connect. Everything must make sense in sequence. The old model said learning is input. Read more, highlight more, store more. This model says learning is output. Explain more, simplify more, generate more. But the analogy has limits. Teaching a child is not always possible. Some concepts need background knowledge. The technique does not mean everything becomes childishly simple. It means you find the simplest version you can honestly produce. The point is not perfection. The point is exposure. Every failed explanation shows you where to return. Every successful explanation proves real understanding. The structure of what you say matters more than how much you read. This is why volume fails and explanation works. Quantity does not equal quality. Only output reveals truth. What happens when you apply this technique to something truly difficult? Physics, advanced mathematics, dense philosophy, subjects that feel impossible. The technique does not break. Becomes more revealing. Simple topics. Explanation feels manageable. You might stumble once or twice, but with complex subjects, the gaps multiply. You try to explain and nothing comes out. Words fail completely. This is not a sign the method is broken. This is the method working. The harder the subject, the more gaps you discover. And discovering gaps is the entire point. Most learners never notice these gaps because they never try to explain. They read difficult material and feel overwhelmed. They assume the problem is the subject. Actually, the problem is the approach. Passive study hides your confusion. Active explanation exposes it. When you sit with a book and nod along, you feel like progress is happening. When you close the book and try to explain, reality appears. The difference between these two experiences is the difference between illusion and truth. Your intuition will resist this. The discomfort feels wrong. You will want to return to reading. This resistance is normal. Your brain prefers easy recognition over hard generation. Expect this resistance. It does not mean stop. It means continue. The principle stays the same regardless of subject, simple or complex, familiar or strange. Explanation tests understanding. Difficulty during explanation reveals gaps. Gaps guide your next focus. There is an odd truth about understanding. It flows in one direction only. You can build complexity from simplicity, but you cannot extract simplicity from complexity. If you understand something at its most basic level, you can add layers. You can make it detailed. You can expand. But if you only know the complex version, you cannot work backward. The simple version will not appear. This is why reading complicated explanations does not produce clear understanding. You see all the pieces. You recognize the structure. But your mind never built the foundation. Without that foundation, nothing holds together. Think of it like construction. Simple bricks make complex buildings. But staring at a building does not teach you about bricks. You must start at the bottom. Jargon hides this problem. Experts use specialized words. When you memorize those words, you feel like an expert. But remove the words and ask for the simple meaning. Suddenly, nothing is there. The words were decoration. The understanding was missing. Memory plays a role here too. Complex phrases are hard to retain. Simple explanations stick. Your brain holds onto what it can easily process. This is not a weakness. It is a signal. If you cannot simplify it, you have not yet understood it. The goal is to reach a point where explanation requires no effort. When simplicity comes naturally, understanding is complete. You wait for the moment when everything clicks. When confusion disappears and certainty arrives. You imagine a finish line where you finally understand completely. That moment does not exist. Understanding is not a destination. It is a shifting state. You explain something today and succeed. Next week, a harder question reveals new gaps. Did you understand before? Yes. Do you understand more now? Also yes. There is no final version. Two people study the same material for the same amount of time. One explains it clearly, the other cannot. Same input, different results. This happens because understanding is not delivered by exposure. It is built by testing. Every context demands something different. Explaining to a child is one test. Solving a problem is another. Teaching an expert is a third. You might pass one and fail the others. Which one proves you understand? All of them. None of them. Understanding has no single form. What stays stable is the method. Can you explain it simply right now? That is all you can measure. Not whether you have mastered it forever, just whether you can produce it today. Your intuition wants a finish line. Reality offers only the next test. Everything you believed about learning has collapsed. The idea that reading equals knowing, that familiarity means understanding, that confidence reflects ability, all of it was wrong. What replaced it is uncomfortable. Learning is not receiving information. It is generating explanation. Understanding is not a feeling, it is a test. You know something only when you can produce it clearly without help. This requires discomfort. When you try to explain and fail, that failure is not the problem. It is the process. Confusion shows you where to work. Struggle reveals the gaps. Without difficulty, nothing is being built. This is why promises of easy learning always fail. If it feels easy, you are probably not learning. You are reviewing what you already know or fooling yourself with recognition. Understanding is always incomplete, always layered. You will never know everything. Each explanation teaches you what you missed. Certainty is a warning. It means you stop testing. Confusion, when properly understood, is not the opposite of learning. It is the sign that learning is finally happening. The discomfort means your brain is working. The gaps mean you found where to build. There is no finish line, only the next explanation.